Our 20th anniversary can wait, she said, fishing her lipstick from the side pocket of her purse like it was just any Thursday. I just want a night with my boss. The wine was already breathing. I'd made the reservation weeks ago. Same corner table, even the same overpriced Pinot we had the night I proposed. I had my suit on. Not the best one, but good enough to feel like something mattered. She didn't even look at the table. Didn't ask why the candles were lit. Just dropped her tote bag onto the seat like we were arguing over takeout. I didn't ask where they were going. Didn't ask what she meant by just a night. I watched her adjust her bra strap under that silk blouse, one I hadn't seen before. Must have been new. Must have been for him. She reached for the perfume she keeps in the cabinet above the fridge. Chanel, the one she says is too strong for day wear. Sprayed once. Then again. Don't wait up, she called from the hallway mirror, fluffing her hair. I'll be late. I didn't say a word. I couldn't. There was too much noise inside my head, and none of it came out clean. I just stood up, walked to the hallway cabinet, and opened the bottom drawer. There it was, exactly where I left it. The envelope. Cream-colored, thick, sealed with a single red wax stamp. I'd written the date on the back. 1 year ago. The day I stopped being naive. It wasn't jealousy that made me suspicious back then. It was patterns. Little changes. How she stopped inviting me to her office parties. How she added a second lock screen to her phone. How her team offsites always seemed to include the same man in the background of every blurry group shot she allowed herself to post. I'd noticed. I'd documented. I'd waited. Because sometimes, the worst betrayals don't scream. They whisper. Like the way she whispered that line to me tonight. Like it was a favor. You know, more than 90% of people who listen to stories like this never hit that little subscribe button. But when you do, it tells the team that someone out there gets it. That our time, our stories, aren't just floating in the dark. So if you've made it this far, that tiny click means more than you know. Back to the night. I left the dinner table as it was. I didn't blow out the candles. I didn't uncork the wine. I just let the house sit in its quiet disappointment. Walked upstairs, changed into something plain, sat at my desk, and opened my laptop. I scrolled past the file labeled W&C_compliance and went to the one marked personal_prenup_docs. Clause 7b. In the event of confirmed infidelity, access to marital assets is to be immediately frozen, pending arbitration. It had taken 2 years to convince her to sign it. Back when her boss was just a name on her calendar and not a reason to forget our anniversary. Just legal stuff. I remember telling her, sliding the folder across our kitchen table. Protection for both of us. She barely skimmed it. I knew she never would. What she didn't know is that tonight wasn't spontaneous. It wasn't a one-off betrayal. It was the trigger I needed. A clear, documented, time-stamped act of abandonment. And yes, I had the footage. Our home security system caught her saying it. Clear as day. Our 20th anniversary can wait. I just want a night with my boss. No room for interpretation. I pulled up the footage, clipped it, and saved it to a new folder. Then I logged into the shared financial dashboard we used, paused her access, flagged the recent transactions, and set the system to email me anytime she tried to log in. By midnight, I was done. She still hadn't come home. I wasn't surprised. The house smelled like roses and dry chicken. The kind she liked, stuffed with goat cheese and herbs I can never pronounce. I'd cooked. I'd planned. I'd tried. But I wasn't going to beg. Instead, I picked up the pen beside the envelope. Wrote a date, tomorrow's. Then, one word underneath. Execute. Because some people deserve a dramatic scene. Others just need silence loud enough to echo. She was probably sipping something expensive in a rooftop bar downtown while I sat at my desk, staring at the digital carcass of our marriage. There's something oddly serene about pulling apart a lie that's been wearing your last name. No yelling. No slamming doors. Just timestamps, metadata, and undeniable silence between the lines. I didn't have to dig. I'd already done that months ago, back when her overnight trips to Dallas mysteriously aligned with last-minute hotel confirmations in Boston. Her firm doesn't even have a Boston office. I checked. Twice. The folder on my desktop was called C. Driftwood. Her maiden name. The irony wasn't lost on me. Inside, PDF exports of every travel expense she ever claimed reimbursement for. Maps cross-referencing her locations using the Find My app she forgot I had access to. Itemized phone records. Nothing illegal, just curious patterns. Like how every late work call somehow started at 10:14 p.m. and ended just shy of midnight. Same number. Screen captures of her chat with someone labeled M. Not dirty, not overt. Just too familiar. Things like, I wish I'd met you before him. And you get me like no one else does. Harmless on their own. Damning in a row. But the crown jewel? An email, composed from our home network, 11:03 p.m. 2 Fridays ago. Subject line, "You're better than my husband." That was it. 5 words. But they cracked the entire foundation. I didn't even open the attachments she sent with it. Didn't need to. She wrote it from our living room, wearing one of my old college shirts, sipping wine I bought. She never knew I mirrored the router months ago. That every email sent through our home IP was logged, archived, and redirected to a private server only I accessed. I stared at the screen, cursor blinking. There was nothing else to do but hit forward. Recipient, A.CEO, personal. Subject, no change. Attachment, entire folder zipped and tagged with her employee ID. You see, I'd learned a long time ago that power doesn't live in confrontation. It lives in curation. What you collect, what you wait for, what you don't say. And this wasn't revenge. Not yet. This was prelude. The man I sent it to, wasn't just the CEO. He was the founding partner. Quiet, ruthless, and allergic to risk. I'd met him once at a company mixer, years ago. He shook my hand like I was a wall. Disinterested. Bored. Until I made a joke about his obscure collection of Japanese fountain pens. That got a half smile. 3 months later, she mentioned casually how he'd requested she be added to his confidential task force on client compliance. I remember nodding, then saving that sentence in a note titled, "Future Leverage." Because when a woman says she wants a night with her boss, she forgets something critical. A boss has more to lose than a husband. A boss has liability. I double-checked the zip file before sending. No revenge porn. No petty screenshots. Just facts. Clean, curated, brutal facts. Enough to suggest an undisclosed relationship. Enough to imply conflict of interest. Enough to raise questions about how she secured those 2 recent client renewals, both of which had been personally overseen by M. By the time the upload finished, my inbox was already pinging with access logs from the cloud drive I'd shared. Someone had clicked. Someone was reading. I leaned back in my chair. The house was still quiet. The wine on the table downstairs had long gone warm. A candle had burned itself out. Her dinner plate untouched. I didn't touch my phone. Didn't open any social media. Just sat there, watching the blinking light on my laptop flicker every few seconds like a soft heartbeat. She thought she was the only one playing a long game. She had no idea mine started a year before she even ordered that first cocktail. I waited until the morning to make the call, not out of hesitation, but timing. Mark picked up on the first ring. Same as always. He didn't waste time with small talk. "Jason." "Yeah, I've got something," I said. "You sound like hell." "I slept fine." "She didn't come home." He paused. "Is this about what you hinted at last fall?" "Worse. Mark and I went to college together. Roommates for 2 years. I built mechanical systems. He took apart corporate ones. These days, he worked as a forensic compliance auditor for a firm that made billion-dollar companies cry. You don't need friends like Mark often. But when you do, you make sure you still know his number. I told him the company name. Silence. Then a low whistle. "Wait, that's the group tied up in that joint SEC pilot program, right? The one trying to restructure municipal bond oversight." "That's the one." "Jesus, Jason." He rubbed his face. I could hear the scratch of stubble through the line. "If there's even a whisper of internal ethics violations tied to someone involved in that deal, she's been involved." He exhaled. "What do you have?" "Employee relationship with direct supervisor. Undisclosed. Personal emails sent over company-secured network from our home IP. Travel records. Potential misuse of internal data for client pitches. Maybe more." I've stopped looking. He didn't ask why I was calling. Didn't need to. The implication was enough. He knew my background. Knew I wasn't the kind of guy to throw around nuclear accusations unless something was already crumbling. Mark's voice dropped into professional mode. "I'll send a secure upload link. You dump everything. Don't curate. Don't edit. Raw files, metadata intact. I'll take it from there." I nodded, forgetting for a second he couldn't see me. "Got it. Oh, and Jason?" "Yeah. If this touches the SEC, it won't be just her getting burned. Anyone who signed off on her expense reports, forwarded those emails, or failed to report a conflict. They're on the hook too. This could go all the way up. You ready for that?" "I'm not going after anyone," I said flat. "I'm just done cleaning up her messes." 10 minutes later, his link arrived. End-to-end encryption. Autolocks after upload. Timestamped server logs. Same tech they use when Fortune 500 execs need to bury something 6 feet under or blow it sky high. I dragged the folder, still named C Driftwood, into the portal. The transfer took 41 seconds. No words, no drama, just the quiet click of a trackpad that sounded louder than thunder. When it finished, the screen flashed. Files received, compliance review pending. I closed the laptop. I wasn't shaking. I wasn't angry. That part had passed sometime between the perfume and the front door last night. Now it was logistics, legalities, leverage. Mark texted a single line. Got it. Sit tight. This'll move fast. I knew what that meant. It wouldn't be a long investigation. It wouldn't be a drawn-out suspension. If even a quarter of what I'd sent suggested a breach tied to an SEC-sensitive account, it would go directly to the CEO. Quietly, before it could spread. That was the beauty of it. I didn't need to shout. I didn't need to expose her. I didn't even need her to admit anything. I just had to let the right people see what I'd already seen, and let the system do what it was designed to do, protect itself. She thought she could manipulate corporate men the same way she manipulated me, through a mix of charm, performance, and convenient omissions. But charm doesn't hold up under audit. And omissions? Well, that's where Mark comes in. I made myself coffee. The sun had risen. My house was still quiet. No text from her. No apologies. No excuses. Just silence. Good. Let her enjoy it. Because by the time she texted back, if she ever did, the machine would already be in motion, and she'd realized too late that she never played me. She played herself. By noon, the house smelled like old roses and burnt wax. Her untouched plate still sat on the dining room table, fork angled just how she left it. Mid-lie, mid-abandonment, mid-dash. I'm sure we'll celebrate another day. I sat in the study, curtains drawn, not to hide anything, but to focus. I had a list in front of me. Not handwritten, not sentimental. Just numbers, logins, and contact names. Step 1. Remove her from the joint credit accounts. Not freeze. Not alert her. Remove. It took 10 minutes. I knew the reps by name. The one from Amex paused only slightly when I said, I'd like to revoke an authorized user. Are you sure you want to completely remove her access? That includes online accounts, charges, and pending transactions. I smiled, not because I was happy, because I was finally still. Yes. Step 2. Place a temporary 90-day lock on all withdrawals from the brokerage. The rep there was sharper. She'd seen this play out before, in quieter homes with louder secrets. You don't need to give me the reason, Mr. L. I know I don't, I said. Just make sure the locks are in place. Nothing moves without my signature. Nothing. She hesitated for a moment, then added, You may want to speak with your attorney about an asset preservation order if this escalates. I already have. Because Step 3, Clause 7b. Infidelity, whether physical or emotional, confirmed by direct evidence, results in the immediate revocation of access to shared marital assets. Temporary, pending a review, but effective immediately. She signed it. I remember her rolling her eyes, calling it old school. It's not like I'm going to run off with someone, she said, sipping Chardonnay on our back porch, sunlight in her hair. I didn't answer back then either, just nodded and filed it. My family attorney, Walter, had been waiting for this call. I didn't even have to explain. Just said, Clause 7b. There was a pause. You have evidence? Yes. Then I'll activate it. You'll get confirmation in 48 hours. If she attempts any major movement of funds, we'll be alerted. You understand this could trigger her legal team to push back. Let them. The last thing I did before closing my laptop was change the passwords to every digital vault we shared. Photos, travel plans, even the Spotify account. Petty, maybe, but I wanted her playlists gone from my speakers. At 12:47 p.m., my phone buzzed. Her, don't wait up. It's a long night. Winky face. She still thought this was a fling. A spark. A thrill. She didn't know the fuse was already burning beneath her seat. I stared at the message, thumb hovering over the reply button. Then I locked the screen and powered off the phone. She wouldn't be hearing from me again. Because here's the thing about a paper wall. People don't notice it until they slam into it. From her side, everything probably still felt open. Free. Unchecked. But behind the scenes, I was bricking the exits. Quietly. Legally. One brick at a time. Let her drink. Let her flirt. Let her whisper sweet betrayals into cocktail glasses lined with lies. By the time she tried to swipe the card or log into her investment dashboard, the system would greet her with a blinking error and a polite message. Access denied. She'd think it was a glitch. She'd call the bank. They'd tell her it was policy. Then she'd check her email and see the letter from Walter. Clause 7b. Triggered. Effective immediately. No fighting. No theatrics. Just the cold efficiency of someone who planned, waited, and struck, not to destroy her. Just to remind her, I was never the fool in this house. She just mistook patience for weakness. And that mistake was going to cost her everything she thought she had access to. Monday morning, she waltzed into the office like she owned it, full of that practiced confidence that gets confused for competence in boardrooms. Cream blazer, silk scarf, the heels I bought her last Christmas, humming something upbeat, probably whatever was playing in that rooftop bar when she decided our 20th anniversary wasn't worth the Uber ride home. But something was off. Not loud, just off. Her keycard didn't give its usual immediate green flash. It flickered red first, just for a beat, before the door finally clicked open. She frowned at it, tapped it again like it had insulted her, and walked through. Didn't notice the receptionist, Claire, watching from her desk with wide, unblinking eyes. She didn't say good morning to anyone. She never did unless it mattered. But what she didn't catch, others did. The compliance VP, Evan, passed her in the hallway without the usual half smile and shoulder squeeze. Normally, he'd toss out some joke about keeping this place afloat. Not today. He looked at her like she was already drowning. At 10:15 a.m., she walked past the CEO's assistant, Melissa, young, sharp, a little too observant for her pay grade. Melissa didn't look up. Not from her monitor, not from her screen, not at all. She just kept typing. Fast. Anxious. That's when the first flicker of doubt hit. She felt it in her gut. Not fear. She wasn't wired for that. Just static. A signal that something in the hive was off frequency. At 11:23, she was mid-email to a client when her Outlook calendar pinged with a new meeting invite. 3 p.m. Urgent internal review. CEO plus legal plus compliance. Mandatory attendance. Subject line in all caps. Sender? Office of the CEO. No context. No attached agenda. Her mouse hovered over the accept button longer than she realized. Then she clicked it. She leaned out of her glass-walled office and flagged down her assistant, Laura. Do you know what this 3 p.m. is about? Laura blinked. No, I wasn't told anything. Her voice had a twitch in it. That flutter people get when they've already read the ending but don't want to spoil it for you. She pulled her phone from her purse. No messages. Nothing from him. No missed calls. She scrolled to Jason's name. Still blocked from the night before. She laughed softly to herself, tossed the phone back in her drawer. No one answers her questions. Not legal. Not HR. Not even the two junior analysts who usually jump at her quick favors. They avoid her. One even pivots mid-hallway to duck into a supply closet. She tells herself it's all nothing. Routine. Corporate nonsense. Probably some new SEC compliance checklist or insurance audit. But she knows that's not true. Not really. Because she's seen what quiet pressure looks like before. And this wasn't a wave, it was the receding tide. The thing about corporate collapses is they never start with shouting. They begin with subtle absence, of eye contact, of courtesy, of explanations. By noon, her coffee was cold and her fingers were shaking as she tried typing out a normal client follow-up. She deleted it 3 times. In her reflection on the office window, she could see Melissa whispering something to someone from compliance. They both glanced toward her office. Then quickly away. No one said it out loud, but the whisper had begun. Not in words. In the space between them. The silence that tiptoes around people marked for removal. And she was starting to realize something. She wasn't part of the company anymore. Not in the way she thought. She was an item under review. A file being opened. A variable being erased. At 2:59, her phone buzzed with a final calendar reminder. Meeting in conference room B. Do not be late. She stood, straightened her blazer. And for the first time since Friday night, she felt something she couldn't laugh off or manipulate away. Something she hadn't felt in years. Doubt. The conference room was ice cold, and not just from the air conditioning. 3 people sat at the end of the long glass table. The CEO, legal counsel, and the head of compliance. All 3 stared at her with unreadable faces. Not the usual stiff professionalism. This was different. This was surgical. She stepped inside and the door clicked shut behind her with an audible finality. On the table, neatly arranged like exhibits in a court case, sat a beige folder she didn't recognize. A thick one. Stuffed. She caught a glimpse of the top page as she took her seat. A photo of her and M at the HR holiday party. Too close, too late into the night, captured mid-whisper. Smiling. Familiar. Next page. Email headers. Dozens of them. Subject lines that made her heart rattle. The CEO didn't speak at first. Neither did legal. But the man from compliance leaned forward and slid a printed contract across the table toward her. Her signature stared back at her from the bottom. Clause 14F. he said quietly, like a parent quoting bedtime rules to a disobedient child. Were you aware that any personal relationship with a direct supervisor must be disclosed immediately and reported through HR? Her mouth opened, closed. I didn't think. That was all she managed. The man didn't blink. He pushed the contract gently back into the folder like it was already finished. Do you know, the CEO finally said, low and steady, what's worse than fraud? She blinked, shook her head. Risk. His jaw tightened. Unreported relationships inside a federally supervised partnership? That's risk. And do you know what you are, Ms. Carter? Silence. You're a risk we didn't vet. The CEO opened the folder wider. Now came the credit card expense logs. Hotel stays in cities she wasn't assigned to. Restaurant charges flagged for being above the travel policy cap. Travel receipts with overlapping weekends and zero client documentation. All cross-referenced. All annotated. Legal cleared her throat. On December 9th, you filed a reimbursement request for a hotel in Atlanta. You claimed it was related to the Canton restructuring pitch. But according to the firm's logs, that pitch was canceled. Furthermore, enough, the CEO snapped. He leaned forward, placing both palms flat on the glass table. Your husband, Ms. Carter, just sent our compliance partner everything. Every email, every expense, every IP log, including your use of the marital home network to conduct confidential correspondence tied to our SEC pilot accounts. That alone violates 4 clauses in our federal contract. Her mouth opened again, trying to form a sentence, but only static came out. Not shock. This wasn't a woman caught off guard. This was a woman calculating, cornered, trapped, and trying to compute where the fire started. What did he do, she asked. But her voice was barely a whisper. The CEO snapped the folder shut with a sound like a gunshot. No, Ms. Carter. Not what did he do. What did you make him do? The words landed with the kind of weight no apology could lift. Her hands curled into fists on her lap, knuckles blanching. Her gaze flitted from legal to compliance, but neither gave her anything to grab onto. No sympathy. No exit. Do you understand the magnitude of this? The CEO asked, almost gently now. You compromised a live federal partnership by using an unsecure network tied to your marital residence, in direct violation of the disclosure terms signed by you. The SEC will audit. That's guaranteed. She didn't speak. Your personal life is your business, the compliance officer added. Until it starts writing checks your firm can't cash. Legal nodded. There will be an internal inquiry, possibly a third-party investigation. You'll be placed on leave pending review. No, the CEO corrected. Effective immediately. She wanted to scream, wanted to deny, wanted to fight, but she couldn't. Not when the evidence was already sitting there. Collated, chronologically sorted, quietly damning. And worst of all this time, she'd thought Jason was weak. Predictable. That he'd go quiet and stew, lick his wounds in a bottle or a therapist's office. She hadn't counted on cold strategy, or contracts, or digital breadcrumbs leading right back to her own front door. The room went still. The kind of stillness that comes after the last word is said, but before the paperwork starts. Her hands trembled slightly as she stood. But no one said goodbye, because she wasn't leaving a meeting. She was leaving her career behind. At 6:02 p.m., she clicked into the company VPN to send herself a few harmless files, templates, old reports, her personal pitch deck. She wasn't stupid. She knew the ice was cracking beneath her heels. If she was going down, she at least wanted to salvage her reputation. Her contacts, maybe even her version of the truth. Instead, her screen froze. Cursor gone. Menu bar grayed out. Then a single pop-up. Access denied. Device security compromised. Contact IT. She clicked. Nothing happened. Her laptop fan stopped spinning. A second later, the entire machine shut off with a quiet, mechanical exhale. Like a body giving up. She stared at it. Then at her office door. And then the slow, deliberate click of footsteps approaching. 2 men in Navy security polos appeared in her glass doorway. Neither smiled. One held a small envelope. The other carried a sealed plastic evidence bag. Ms. Carter, one said flatly. We'll need your badge and phone, please. She blinked. Wait. What? This isn't. There's been no formal. Internal audit confirmed. We've been instructed to escort you out. Legal has emailed the summary report. You'll receive a printed copy by certified courier tomorrow. They didn't touch her. Didn't yell. Just waited. She opened the top drawer. Reached for her phone. Paused. Can I at least? Please don't make this harder than it has to be. She stood. Back straight. A woman rehearsed in power postures and optical dignity. But no amount of good posture hides humiliation when it's walking beside you, floor by floor, as your coworkers pretend not to notice. No one looked up from their monitors. No one waved. Even Claire, the receptionist, stared straight ahead at her keyboard as if programmed to do so. At the exit, she handed over her badge, her company-issued laptop bag, and the envelope she'd used to keep spare business cards. The security guard nodded, stepped aside, and said only one thing as the door locked behind her. Good luck. She stood outside the building for 5 full minutes before moving. She didn't call anyone. She didn't cry. She simply stared at the reflection of herself in the lobby glass, still in the cream blazer, still in the heels, still trying to look like this wasn't a total unraveling. It was past sunset when she pulled into the driveway at home. For a moment, she thought she had the wrong address. The porch lights were off. Her potted plants were missing. And the front door? There was a note. Typed. Laminated. Taped dead center on the wood. For legal matters, please contact Morris and Bell. Her heart sank like an elevator with the cables cut. She tried the key. It didn't fit. Tried the backup from her glove box. Still nothing. The realization didn't hit like a punch. It hit like a slow tide rising up her legs. He'd changed the locks. Legally. She pounded the door. Jason. Jason, open the door. We can talk. No answer. She circled to the back. Nothing. Windows shut. No lights. Just the cold hum of a house that no longer belonged to her. Eventually, the neighbor peeked out through their blinds. She didn't wave. Just disappeared again. By the time she walked back to the front, exhausted, humiliated, her eye caught something. There, just barely visible through the side window. A white envelope, neatly placed on the kitchen counter. She circled back and pressed her face to the glass, squinting under the dim light. The handwriting was unmistakable. Jason's. Block letters. Precise. Please refer to Section 4 of our post-nup. You triggered it. She closed her eyes. Section 4. Right. That was the clause he insisted on adding, the one she laughed off over wine. In the event of infidelity, emotional or physical, the accused party shall forfeit claim to primary residence pending mediation. Immediate removal authorized. She had signed it. She remembered. Just sign it, he'd said, smiling softly. It'll never matter. We trust each other, right? And she had. Not because she trusted him. Because she never thought he'd have the spine to enforce it. She sat down on the front step, her blazer now wrinkled, her hair coming loose in the wind. No car in the driveway. No Jason. No keys. No plan. Only the echo of that laminated message on the door. And inside, a life she no longer had permission to enter. Her phone lit up like a neon confession. She stared at it for a full minute before picking up. Dialed his number, twice. No answer. No ring. Only the automated voicemail. Jason, please, pick up, she whispered, as though the repetition might bend reality. She left a message. Tentative, shaky, full of explanations that would never matter. No reply. She tried email next. Subject line, can we talk? The body was a plea. A recitation of shared history. A reminder of anniversaries, birthdays, the house, the vacations. The reply came instantly. Not from him. Not even a polite assistant. From counsel. Ms. Carter, please direct any inquiries regarding Mr. L's personal and financial decisions to our office. This correspondence is now recorded. Further direct contact may be considered harassment. She stared at the screen, the words sinking like stones into her stomach. Harassment. Recorded. Legal record. Next, she called her parents. Hi, Mom. Dad. Can we? A silence that wasn't awkward. It was deliberate. A pause so long it seemed rehearsed. Then her mother's voice, careful and cold. Sweetheart, we've received a letter explaining everything. We think it's best you call your attorney. Her father hung up before she could respond. No one wanted to be part of her side of the story. Not her husband, not her parents, not even her closest professional allies. She had been systematically isolated. Then the phone rang. Unknown number. She answered. Ms. Carter. The voice was crisp, controlled, corporate, not at all like her boss's usual warmth. Yes, she said, trembling. This is Mr. Hansen, CEO. I'm calling to confirm the timeline of events concerning your recent activities and communications with direct supervisors. Can you verify when these actions occurred? Her heart thudded. It wasn't a conversation. It was an interrogation. A record. And the tone made it clear. Any misstatement could be added to the growing pile of evidence stacked against her. She started, but immediately stopped. She didn't know what to say. Everything she'd rehearsed in the hotel bar, every excuse, every charm tactic, had evaporated. She realized, painfully, that there was nothing left to explain, because Jason's hand had already moved on the board, in compliance, and in law. Her access, her reputation, her narrative, all stripped. And she hadn't even seen the worst yet. Emails confirming terminations, freezes, and formal internal notices sat unread. Digital shadows she couldn't reach without her credentials. They were already routing to Walter and Mark, all cleanly documented. Every misstep she had ever committed in her careless moments had been curated, chronologically ordered, dated, time-stamped, unassailable. Even her social safety net had collapsed. Friends she thought she could call for advice either didn't pick up or gave vague, evasive responses, pretending not to know what was happening. The silence was deafening. By mid-afternoon, she realized she had no one. Not Jason, not colleagues, not parents, not friends. Just a cold, empty apartment and the echoing knowledge that the most formidable force in her life wasn't raising a hand to strike. It had already struck. Quietly, legally, efficiently. She stared out the window. Across the street, someone walked their dog. Birds chirped. Life continued. Normal. But hers? Her world had been erased in increments. Each voicemail unanswered. Each email bounced back. Each blocked access notification was a hammer strike against the foundation she thought she controlled. And yet, she felt a pang of anxiety that went deeper than losing her career or home access. The real reckoning, the one that would affect her professionally, socially, and legally, hadn't even arrived yet. She could feel it lurking behind every call she didn't answer, every email she couldn't access, every knock she wasn't expecting. Jason wasn't yelling. He wasn't pleading. He didn't need to. The silence itself screamed louder than any confrontation. And she understood, finally, that there was no return. Wednesday, 7:58 a.m. The conference room was already full. No pastries, no coffee, just a long, polished table lined with tension and people who'd once toasted champagne in her honor. Now they stared at their folders without touching them. Emergency board meeting. Title, Compliance Crisis, Internal Risk Review. Lead presenter, CEO, Mr. Hansen. Secondary, Legal Counsel, Audit Chair, and External Risk Advisor. The chair called the session to order. Mr. Hansen didn't dramatize. He didn't need to. The evidence did the talking. Ms. Carter's failure to disclose an ongoing relationship with her direct supervisor has triggered multiple violations of our compliance charter, he said, flipping the cover page of his dossier. That relationship, as documented through internal communications and third-party investigation, placed the company in jeopardy of breaching contract terms with our federally governed partnerships, including our SEC pilot. The room remained still. A few heads tilted. Others scribbled notes without looking up. Furthermore, legal added, we've confirmed she used non-secure personal devices connected to her home network to transmit privileged client information. That alone constitutes grounds for immediate termination under Policy 9.4. Has external counsel weighed in? Someone asked from the far end. They have. The risk profile is categorized as high. Public exposure could result in reputational damage, regulatory penalties, and loss of our pilot privileges. Another board member asked the only question that mattered. Do we have cause? Documented. Confirmed. Reviewed by 2 independent firms, legal replied, sliding a binder across the table. The CEO straightened his tie. No grandstanding. Just the kill shot. I recommend full termination. Immediate revocation of access. All deferred stock options canceled under Clause 11. Bonus pending audit, but frozen effective now. Health benefits void under administrative termination classification. He paused. All in favor. Hands rose. One by one. 9. No one voted against. And just like that, her career didn't end in scandalous headlines or viral emails. It ended in a quiet, calculated vote, unanimous, legal, devastating. By 9:12 a.m., her employee profile was scrubbed from the directory. By 9:45 a.m., her company-issued devices were officially marked for recovery. At 10:17 a.m., a third-party courier received the sealed box and instructions. Meanwhile, 3 miles away, she sat cross-legged on the bare hardwood floor of the apartment she hadn't furnished yet. Still in the pajamas she'd worn for 2 days. No appetite. No appetite for food, for excuses, for explaining anything to anyone anymore. She'd called 5 lawyers. 2 never called back. One offered a polite no. The 4th said, "You're toxic now." The 5th one just laughed. The doorbell rang. Sharp. Sudden. She jolted, knocking over a half-empty glass of water. For a fleeting second, Her heart fluttered. Maybe it was someone, anyone, with good news. An apology. A lifeline. Instead, it was a man in a branded vest, holding a brown cardboard box. Ms. Carter. Yes. Signature here. This is from the company. She signed without reading. He handed over the box. Inside, an itemized checklist. Laptop. Keycard. Client notebooks. Branded ID lanyard. Travel reimbursement receipts. Hard copies. Secondary monitor, labeled. At the bottom, typed in bold. Please return all company property within 72 hours. Health benefits terminated effective immediately. No signature. No sentiment. Just policy. She placed the box on the counter, hands trembling. Her reflection caught in the dark window glass behind it. Unbrushed hair, eyes rimmed red. A woman unrecognizable from the one who strutted past reception just days ago. In the silence, her phone buzzed with a final notification from the HR portal. Access revoked. Employment record updated to. Terminated, cause. She sat down, back against the fridge, knees pulled to her chest. It wasn't grief. It wasn't anger. It was vacancy. The kind that came when there was no one left to blame and nothing left to hold on to. She had made 1,000 little decisions, each one so easy in the moment. A drink, a lie, a night away, a giggle in a text message. Now, every one of those choices had a dollar amount, a consequence, and a vote count. And the house of cards she built on Jason's silence? Flattened, without him ever raising his voice. Her inbox had been quiet all morning. That kind of quiet that isn't peaceful, it's predictive. The kind that means something's already happened, and the fallout just hasn't reached you yet. She refreshed the screen again. Nothing. She closed the laptop, then opened it again 5 minutes later, as if something might have changed. It had. There it was. One email. No greeting. No signature block. From CEO.office@______. Subject, formal termination notice. She hesitated to click. Her thumb hovered, twitching just slightly, the way it used to when she got good news, bonuses, promotions, praise from the board. But this wasn't that. She clicked. The body contained one sentence. This isn't about your husband. It's about what you cost us. That was it. No summary of infractions. No HR language. No bullet-pointed legalese. Just one razor-edged truth. She didn't scream. There was no theatrical collapse. No wailing into the void. She just sat there, blinking, staring at the screen, hands resting limp on the keyboard, as if still waiting for a chance to reply, still believing there might be a button she could press to undo all of this. But there wasn't. Across the city, her ex-husband sat in a garden chair, a chipped ceramic mug in his hand, coffee black, like always. The backyard was quiet, overgrown in places, peaceful in others. He watched a single bird hop along the fence line, pausing every few feet to peck at invisible crumbs. He didn't smile, didn't gloat. He just was. The file folder that started it all lay closed in the drawer beside him, untouched since he handed it off. He hadn't opened it since. He didn't need to. The systems had taken over. Her miscalculations had taken over. Her hubris. Her assumptions. She thought silence meant surrender. That a man who doesn't scream back has already lost. But silence isn't always weakness. Sometimes it's strategy. Sometimes it's a man waiting, watching, listening. And when the time comes, moving with such precision that by the time the knife lands, it doesn't even feel like pain. It just feels like the end. He took a sip of his coffee. Still hot. The morning breeze shifted the leaves. Inside her now sterile inbox, the email sat unread for a second time. She had closed the laptop, not in anger, in resignation. Because now, finally, she understood. She hadn't just betrayed a husband. She'd underestimated a man who built engines for a living. Quiet machines that run for decades because they're assembled with patience, attention, and care. And when something breaks, you don't shout at it. You replace it. Silently. Completely. Without a trace.